Welcome to a series of videos called English for Emerson. We're doing some English reading and writing practice on this channel. You need something to write with. You need lined paper with lines going side to side. I got a board here with sloppy lines on it. I've always been a sloppy person. It's probably not going to change. I tell you what, we have been doing what you would call folk sayings on this channel lately. I'll put it up here, folk sayings. Sayings from the old times. Those old timers, they knew a lot because they knew how to survive without what we have today, which we have a bunch of modern conveniences today. Dishwashers and computers and refrigerators and nice cars and airplanes and TVs and phones. They didn't have any of that nonsense. They had very basic tools, and somehow they managed to survive because we're all here. People live for thousands of years with very little. They picked up on a little bit of wisdom in that time. And we have that wisdom in our language. That's how we access the wisdom of our ancestors, really, is in our language. They had a bunch of little sayings that we use to this day. Once you learn them, you not only understand the language better, but you also benefit from their wisdom. Here's one of their sayings today. Here we go. We're gonna start with the word slow. Slow. What letter would you start the word slow with? Well, probably either a C or an S. In this case, it's going to be an S. Capital S. Here we go. I'm taking up the space between three lines. I go from the top through the middle down to the bottom line. I don't know if you can see my sloppy lines on the screen. Then we're going to have an L, slow. You can imagine the next letter is going to be an O. And we end with a W. Now the ending on this word slow is kind of weird because we know that the OW can make the sound O. Like if we say we own something. Own. I own this bicycle. Well, yeah, the OW can make the sound O. It can also make the sound ow. Like in the word town. Okay, so it's confusing. Because the OW makes a couple of different sounds, okay? Now we're going to do and. A-N-D. Here we go. And. A-N-D, we know that one. Then we're going to have the word steady. S-T. E-A. D-Y. And we're going to have a comma. Slow and steady. What does that mean? It means, well, you know what slow means. Steady means even. It's a different way of saying nice and even. It's not like hurry up and then slow down. Steady is just the same pace, the same speed. Slow and even, slow and steady. Comma. We got a comma here. There's a little pause you can hear. Slow and steady wins the race. Wins the race. You can hear the end z. Wins. Now you can hear, that's not a very attractive S. We can hear on the word wins that it ends with a Z sound. Wins. But we know, we've been learning that most of the time the Z sound at the end of a word is going to be with an S. Not all the time, but most of the time. Eventually we'll get to a word that has a Z sound at the end that ends with a Z, but it's going to take a while. There's not many of them. Slow and steady wins the, we know about the, T-H-E, race. R A, C, E. We got a soft C in there to make the S in race. Now take a look at this word race, because we talk about it in every single lesson. I swear we do. And that is the silent E. This word is not racy. No, not at all. This is race. How do we know that E is going to be silent? Well, we know that E is going to be silent because there's another vowel in the word before it. The E at the end of the word, it's like I say, I'm like a broken record, I know. The E at the end of the word is always silent if there's another vowel in that word before it. And we have one right here, the A. Okay, here we go. Slow and steady wins the race. What does that mean? Well, the old timers, you got to think about it for a second. Their entire life was basically boring jobs. They had to do a tremendous amount of physical work because they didn't have the machines that we have today. So think about their life. Every day, how'd you get water to start the day? Well, you had to go out to the well with a bucket, and you had to, lower the bucket down into the well with some kind of rope and pulley, and then the bucket would fill up down there, and then you'd pull it back up, and then you'd take the bucket into the house and, do what you needed to do with the water. So just the first thing, you started off with work. Of course, then, you had to go out and milk the cow by hand. Then what else did you do? Well, you had to go out and get the eggs from the chickens. All day long was stuff like this. How did you heat the house? Or cook? Well, you couldn't turn on a stove. You couldn't turn on heat. There was no such thing. You had to make a fire. Well, how'd you do that? You had to go cut wood. You had to chop. And did you have like an automatic electrical saw to cut the wood? No. You had to use a long saw. And then you had to split the wood with an axe. Oh my gosh, just think about all the work that they had to do. And then you had to churn the milk into butter. Or make the cheese, whatever. It just was constant work. And, they figured out over time that you didn't get much done. Let's say if you're milking a cow, it would irritate the cow. You went real fast and tried to get it done quickly. It just didn't work. The cow was happier if you went slow and steady. Slow and steady. Slow and steady. Same thing with sawing the wood. If you had a log here and you had a nice long saw, you didn't go up there and it would not work well. You wouldn't get anything done. You had to go slow and steady with the blade of the saw going through the wood and get a nice rhythm going. Not herky-jerky. Not like this. Slow and steady, using the legs. Do you follow me? They figured this out. They had to get so much work done that they just learned. Slowing down and keeping a nice steady pace was the way to get things done. And in the end, you'd get more done if you kept a nice, even, slow, steady pace. By the end of the day, you'd have gotten more done if you just kept it calm. Well, it applies to everything. And that we say it to this day, even though people don't have to milk cows anymore. People don't have to cut wood with a handsaw anymore. The logic applies the same way. You might hear, if you're going to school, Or if you're learning how to do anything, your teacher will say, slow and steady wins the race. Well, trying to learn English, which is difficult, trying to learn any language, it makes a lot more sense. Because I've tried to learn languages, and I'm telling you, the best way to learn is to use it a little bit every day. It doesn't make any sense to try to sit down once a week and figure out a new language or learn how to read or write. It makes absolutely no sense because the brain learns by slow, steady practice. You think about what your brain is a bunch of connections between nerves, and that the way that those connections grow and develop and expand and connect is by slow, steady growth of connections in the nerves in your brain. They don't develop by working on something once a week. It doesn't work that way. It works by slow, steady, consistent practice. And if you do a little bit every day, that's how the nerves connect to each other, and that's how you learn something. It's like that with anything. For example, let's say I wanted to learn how to do something new, like let's say I wanted to learn how to play the saxophone. Well, that's more like a trombone sound. But if I wanted to do it, I'd have to go to the store and buy one, and I'd have to say, okay, every day I'm going to sit down with this thing and work on it for 5 minutes. And then I'm just going to quit. But every single day, I'm going to sit down with this saxophone and work at it for 5 minutes. I guarantee after a few years, I would pick it up and be able to play it. That's what happened with me with playing the guitar. I am not a naturally musically talented person at all. No. But I picked up that thing when Emerson was maybe, a year old or 2 years old. I started to fiddle around with it. And now I'm not a good guitar player, but I can fiddle around with it and I can play it enough that it brings me enjoyment. I didn't go to lessons. I didn't hire anybody really to teach me how to do it. I just sat down and worked with it every day for a few minutes, and now I can more or less play a little bit. Okay, it's the same with anything. We'll do some more folk sayings about this in the future. There's quite a few of them about how consistent, slow practice, that's how you actually get the most done or learn how to do something. There it is. That's all I got for you today on English for Emerson. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.